on the Isle of Mull in the west coast of Scotland, a beautiful remote part of the world. I've been in the UK visiting friends and family in London, Bristol and Edinburgh, rural parts of Suffolk, West Wales, Northamptonshire and Berkshire. And I wanted to post something about my experiences travelling solo. It's been a wonderful trip, but occasionally challenging. Think dealing with road diversions in rural Wales, a maze of tiny lanes with grass growing up the middle, gigantic agricultural equipment coming the other way, and a disabled navigation system. Then there was the labyrinthine London Underground and overground railway system. Enough said. And trains that came when I wasn't expecting them, trains that weren't supposed to come, and trains that never arrived. Dealing with a impairment, it doesn't take a lot to knock you off kilter. Speaking of kilts, nope, still got my pants on. A quick addition to my last post. Here's a longer written account of a journey in London. It illustrates what I'm experiencing, mild cognitive impairment at this point that results in errors in judgment and consequential minor crises. Take a look. My hand. Hi, George King here with the blog Dancing with Delirium, an exploration of my life with Alzheimer's. I'm back in the US, and after a brief side trip, we're returning to excerpts from interviews with some of my new friends. This week, meet care partner Dan Goerke.
Yeah, my name is Dan Goerke, and I grew up in South Bend, Indiana. I met Denise, my second wife, through our mutual love of swimming. We were both gun shy, having been married before, about getting married. But we enjoyed each other and loved hiking, swimming, doing adventurous camping, things like that. And so we got married in 2002. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. She comes from a big family. And we had our three basically teenage kids at the wedding, and that was just fun to share that moment with our kids as well too.
Today is October 22nd, 2015, and it is the third anniversary, so to speak, of the day that Denise and I got the diagnosis that she has Alzheimer's.
Yeah, there were a lot of hints early on that I just chalked up to stress. She had just jumped back into the working world, and this was probably about 2009. And it was a very stressful position, and there was no one more hard on Denise than Denise. And so she put a lot of stress on herself, and so I chalked up a lot of little memory lapses to that stress. So she would forget where her purse was. She would forget what she was doing at work. The most notable thing that I started noticing was she drove around Atlanta for sales calls and to visit clients. And she started going out on those calls and would call me and would say, I'm on 285, but I'm not sure where I'm going. And I said, well, who's your client? And I'd Google it and find out the route she's supposed to go and tell her, and she goes, oh, okay, thanks, and hang up, and she'd be on her merry way. And that's fine. Everybody has those lapses every once in a while. And the real problem came is that it kept happening over and over again, to the point where I was printing out directions for her, inputting it into her GPS for her car, and I'd still get calls of where am I going? And just I could sense the confusion in her voice. And that's when I said, we probably should go talk to a doctor about this. This is getting a little bit much, and it's happening over and over again. And fortunately, she agreed to it.
So I'm doing something a little bit different. This is going to be a continuing video blog. It's going to tell you a little bit more about the disease, and in particular, about the role and challenge of the caregiver, and it also a little bit more about what happens as the disease progresses.
Visit again next week to hear more from Dan. But now, I feel my toe tapping. It's time to dance. Last week, we left Dan Goerke telling us his wife Denise had agreed to see a doctor about her memory problems.
Unfortunately, the primary care doctor that we went to latched onto the idea that she was not sleeping at night. And she pointed that out, and he said, well, that's probably the cause of your memory lapses, is you're just not getting deep enough sleep. So he sent us to a sleep specialist, and we went down that path for about a year and a half. Now, in hindsight, he should have referred us also to a neurologist that specializes in memory issues, but he didn't. And all the while, her memory issues kept getting worse and worse. And it was sad to think back that we had literally lost about a year and a half of not really knowing what to do or what was going on.
I asked Dan if there was any stress between them.
You know, it's interesting, George. It was not. There was no friction. It was Denise really concerned that she couldn't remember where she was going and where she had put her purse. She would ask for my help. I would, of course, give it, and then she'd be on her merry way. And because she was always the type of taking one step and then taking the next, always moving forward. And so she didn't stop to think of being frustrated with her memory issues. And I was 100% supportive of helping her, whatever task it was that she needed help with. So there was rarely friction. The friction actually came after the diagnosis, where I think she realized she knew there was something pretty serious going on here. And she wanted to maintain as much control as possible, which I completely understand. And so that's when the friction began with, saying, I want to go to the grocery store, and I'd be telling her, we just came back from the grocery store, or I need new tennis shoes. And I'd say, well, we just got you new tennis shoes. And there'd be little arguments back and forth. And those were the times where there was certainly friction.
We will be hearing more from Dan and other care partners in the future. But next week, I wanted to talk about some changes in the medications I may be taking and some important decisions.